Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Tougies Take Podcast. It is us, the guys, the fellas, reunited after a month. I am here alongside Mr. Endo Mills and Mr. Sin for the win, back from the land of the Finns. After over a month, we finally got him back. He's taking a nice vacation over here back in California before probably going back to his home. Sin, it is, buddy pal of mine. It was a month ago we met up in Finland. Yeah. And now, what a weird damn time it is. I am going to open, the floor is yours here to start off this podcast to talk about anything you want Finland-wise. Of course, hockey-wise, because there have been a lot of changes for the Sharks. You missed all the draft stuff. You missed the end of the Stanley Cup. You were still in Finland. I
actually watched. I watched. Yeah, I did watch the last game. Not live, but I did get a chance to see it in repeat. Very happy for the Avs, man. What a fucking series that was. And also, it can't be understated just how close the Lightning were to a three-peat. I think that is kind of almost not being forgotten, but they were so close to a three-peat. I still consider them modern-day dynasty. They didn't quite hit true dynasty because they didn't get the three-peat, but they're modern-day dynasty for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And like I said, I'll open up the floor. Again, maybe we can hold that off until the next episode because today we're talking about everything free agency-wise over the past 2 days. We're into day 3. We got a whole lot to talk about on that front. So we won't have viewer questions, but if Sin doesn't have anything else to add, then hey, we'll open up viewer questions for the next episode on that point. So we'll start off, as always, as we always say, this podcast is brought to you by our lovely friends at Manscaped. You can use code Tougie at checkout for 20% off your order and free worldwide shipping. Again, it is the code Tougie, Tougie, at manscaped.com, your number one destination for all your grooming needs. Hashtag circular deodorant.
I don't know where it is.
Hashtag I use the lawnmower. It's very effective.
No matter what side of the Atlantic you're on, the lawnmower.
I actually should have brought it because I ended up staying there for a fucking month. I'm not going to tell you how I maintain, but it involves kitchen scissors.
Welcome back, buddy. Good to have you.
It's good to be back. Good to be back here.
Good to be back. Good to see him. Good to get
The one thing I will say about Finland, and then I want to get to the free agent stuff, and if anyone else wants to know a lot more, you can ask for the next time, or probably tune into my channel the first time I do a franchise video, and I'll probably rant about it. But the one thing I will say is I'm having a harder culture shock coming back to the States than I did going to Finland. It was when you get there, there's a shock, but it's a shock oh, this is right. This feels right. This is how society should be. And then you get back to, I got back to the States. I was oh, it's just so grating to be back here.
Yeah, did you hear one car horn in, number one, LOL,
yeah,
traffic?
Only buses and trams, because the culture there in Finland it's fucking rude to honk your horn. You don't do it unless there's a goddamn emergency or someone's life's at stake. The only people who honked the horns were buses and trams when someone ran out in front like a moron or drove out in front when they weren't supposed to. So yeah, it's
as someone from Massachusetts.
It's very interesting. Not using your horn, imagine.
Just a complete difference. It's ridiculous. Yeah, definitely check out Sin's channel, of course. Sin FTW Productions on the YouTube side of things. And Sin, I'm intrigued from a more hey, one YouTuber to another thing, how difficult you find it to get back into the content making groove, because I have been home for 3 weeks now and I'm still trying to adapt to being home. And you're going to have an even more difficult time for.
Yeah, I'm extremely motivated. Yeah, I'm extremely motivated because I know that's going to have to be a very, very large part of my income if I do actually, end up moving to Finland. To at least for that, I want to at least nearly be doubling my YouTube output, because if I did that, that would essentially, especially with some of the places you can get incredible rents on, that would essentially cover most of the bills, rent and the other stuff, just that. So then you have, and that'll help be able to transition to get some kind of other job and whatever else in esports and whatnot.
There you go. He's on the grind.
But yeah, I'm very motivated, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to get back to and it's gonna be fighting the fucking algorithm, which is gonna suck because I haven't posted for a month.
There you go. So with that, again, today's episode all about NHL free agency. Today is technically day 3. I do want to mention right off the top the top remaining UFAs available, because we'll be mentioning them as we go team by team. I will also mention the RFAs on each team as we go through. But as of today, we have still yet to see the top free agent left is Nazem Kadri, yet to sign. We'll be mentioning him a lot today. The other big forwards at this stage, really down a peg or two. It's Phil Kessel, Paul Stastny, Niederreiter, Evan Rodriguez, Sonny Milano, Danton Heinen, like that type. Like Kadri is the gem left in this free agent class at the moment. Defensively, it's kind of the same thing. You have John Klingberg as that big name that's out there still. After that, it's Strawman, Subban, and like Keith Yandel. And then goalie-wise, the market's already dead. So there's not too much left to be decided on that.
Sharks
UFA
have
market.
all the goalies, bitches.
We
seriously have like 11 goalies on roster. It's crazy.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I actually had a different forward who was on that list. And then in the time it took me to complete the sheet and be ready for us to record, Toronto signed somebody. And I'm very intrigued to hear Endo's thoughts on that here in a little bit. But let's do it. We are going to go team by team as we always do, because, hey, some teams there's a lot to talk about, some teams not so much. We'll start off alphabetically. Want to talk about the Anaheim Ducks, who have made quite a few depth signings, but 2 key forward signings so far. Frankie Vatrano, a 3-year deal at about 3.5, and then Ryan Strome, a 5x5. I like both. I like both of these signings for the Ducks, but as I have noted here for us, gentlemen, they still have $30 million in open cap space, 2 RFAs, Isaac Lundstrom and Urho Vakanainen. They could easily be in on Kadri and Klingberg. Whether or not they are, though, I think it goes down to kind of the aspirations, and that's kind of the key for like your Kadris and Klingbergs at this point. Are you willing to take more money from a team that likely won't be a playoff team for, as few as like Anaheim might be, 2-3 years away, depending on how the defense core develops? And then you might have a team like Chicago that could afford them, and you're not going to see the playoffs for 5+ years.
Yeah, I really like the situation the Ducks have placed themselves in. This is as close to playing, as close to like playing a good form of franchise mode on NHL, not the Blackhawks style and or the Vegas style. Just trading for fucking everything. Oh, yes, we will. Yeah, but Anaheim, it's very smart what they've been doing. They tore everything down. They've gotten good assets. They've drafted well. They're being patient. And now they have a shit ton of cap space when they have Drysdale, Zegras, all really starting to come into their own. That could attract guys like Kadri and Klingberg because, again, Kadri's not that old. 30? 29, 30 now, Kadri?
I want to say yes, but at the same time, I feel like he's one of those players where it's like he's a deceptive age. He is 31. He turns 32 in October.
No, he's not. Oh, my
32
God.
32 in October. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
2009 draft. That's madness.
And Klingberg probably around the same age. I think a couple years younger, Klingberg.
Yeah, I believe he is.
But still, you're not quite into
29.
that. You're not quite into that full veteran. You can maybe afford to wait a year or two to get into that playoff hockey. And again, if they got Kadri and Klingberg would be kind of nuts, but if they did get both of them, in the Pacific Division, that puts them at least on the bubble, I think. Like, that Pacific is not looking too good.
I don't disagree. Endo, any thoughts on the Anaheim Ducks?
It's very interesting, especially with their prospect development and all that. I think my mic may be really low. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, we'll figure it out in post.
But yeah, there we go. Prospect development is looking good for them. It's crazy to see these teams that we wouldn't really think would be contenders or anything have all this room to go and make moves and make things happen. It's like an open playing field right now. We'll talk about other teams who've made like big moves and big signings, but it just seems like this free agency, a lot of teams are making big step ups and some teams are taking advantage of that completely. And it's going to be very interesting come preseason just to see how well these teams are meshing together and if we're going to see some people go out of rebuild or like contenders to like switch around.
So far so good for Anaheim. Arizona. The tank is still on. They did acquire Patrick Nemeth, a 2025 second rounder, and a conditional pick where essentially they get to choose if they want a 2024 third rounder or a 2026 second rounder.
That's weird.
That's weird.
Incredibly bizarre. Like, you're literally talking about, like, yeah, what eighth grader do you
Yeah.
like, do you want to be scouting a high school sophomore or an eighth grader right now? Like, that's basically what you're talking about. For the Rangers, it was more of a cap dump to get rid of Nemeth. They do get back defensive prospect Ty Emberson in the deal. So honestly, I thought both teams did pretty well there. The Coyotes, in terms of other moves, though, they brought back Boko Amama. They bring in Nick Bjugstad, Josh Brown, Troy Stetcher, other depth. So obviously no major impact players. They have about $28 million in cap space once Brian Little hits LTIR. They need to sign Lawson Krause and Barrett Hayton. So they as well have room for Nazem Kadri and John Klingberg. It's just whether or not they view like, okay, I can get extra money here, but again, nowhere near the playoffs. And for Kadri, it might not matter as much. You just won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I think Arizona's more of a team to just get to the cap floor this season. I think they should hold true to the course, get to the cap floor, because it's the Bedard sweepstakes this season. Like, clearly Chicago's trying to make a fucking run for it, or they're just
as well.
I don't even but I don't know. Philadelphia is almost like, I don't even think they have a direction. I don't. We'll get to that later, but yeah, I don't know if Fletcher knows what the fuck he's doing.
Spoiler alert, everybody. He doesn't. Endo, any thoughts on Arizona as they continue to set the stage for signing Austin Matthews in the near future?
I love how that's still like a thing. Like,
it won't
rent free. Like, I don't like give me all of it. We'll play the 1 year
Leafs cliches right now.
Yeah.
Someone chirping a Leafs fan about Matthews going to Arizona, and then the Leafs fan saying rent free. That was the most Twitter interaction on the fucking planet right there.
Yeah, honestly, every second it's like, oh, he's gonna go home. Goudreau could have went home. He went to fucking Columbus. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I don't know. Like, it's gonna be very interesting. It's as you said, like, Chicago is absolutely tanking, but this year the bottom three teams are guaranteed a top 3 pick, from what I can remember. And
what? Really?
Yeah, I heard something about that. The bottom 3 teams are guaranteed a top 3 pick.
I don't think so. You can only move back two now if you're in the.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah,
something like that.
So they're guaranteed a top 5 pick, I think.
Top
like,
5.
Your odds are higher than they've been in recent years. It's still not a guarantee.
Yeah, they're just. It seems like they're rewarding the tank. It's crazy. I don't know. I'm not really a fan of like the idea of just like absolutely scorching earth of your franchise to pick up one guy, because for other teams they picked up that one guy and it never worked out for them. See, Edmonton, like, basically almost ruining Conor McGregor, McDavid's career. Because
imagine Conor McGregor in Edmonton, dude.
To tie this together, I shit you not. I fell asleep the other day, not because the content was boring, but there's a lovely MMA channel by the name of MMA On Point.
Yeah.
And they mentioned something about Conor McGregor. And that must have infiltrated my brain, because the last thing I remember before waking up was watching a fictional UFC pay-per-view where Brock Lesnar fought Conor McGregor. The fight started, they walked to the middle, Lesnar hit him with an overhand right, and that was it. And then I woke up. That is a real thing that happened. I want that to happen in real life, because let's be honest, that's the UFC at this point. It's nothing but freak shows anyway. Yeah, there you go. Sin, do you have a random Conor McGregor reference to me? Because we're 2 for 3 so far.
No.
Good.
No. Yeah, I don't like UFC like at all.
There you go. Fair enough. I don't like it either. I like the sport. I hate the company.
I don't
Arizona,
like the
staying the course, doing okay. Austin Matthews, $28 million in cap space. Every single penny is going to go to him in the very near future. Boston Bruins. All right. Bruins.
Oh.
So, aside from some depth signings, including, I'll call him friend of the channel, AJ Greer. Played some Played some Versus against AJ on stream once upon a time. Cool that he's now a Bruin. They signed workout fiend Connor Carrick. Aside from that, no major free agent signings, but they did acquire Pavel Zacha from the New Jersey Devils in a 1-for-1 trade with Eric Holla. And the way that I've summed this up is you kind of know what you're going to get with Eric Holla, whereas Pavel Zacha is the type of guy where it's like, okay, a change in scenery might be exactly what he needs to kind of hit that consistent peak. So we know what Holla is. Zacha has the higher ceiling. I don't know what they're going to pay him because he's an RFA. And when you acquire an RFA, you throw away a lot of your negotiating power. They have $5 million to sign him. And at the same time, Patrice Bergeron has not yet signed a new contract, and they have been apparently talking with David Krejci. $5 million to sign those three players screams Bergeron and Krejci signing Jason Spezza-like minimum contracts to try to make this happen and to give them wiggle room potentially at the deadline. The Bruins have injuries that they're going to have carry over to the start of the season. I'd say most notably Brad Marchand. I don't hate the Zacha acquisition, but at this stage, if you don't bring back Bergeron and, I mean, especially Bergeron, but Bergeron and Krejci, I don't know if they make the playoffs because the Atlantic, Detroit and Ottawa, have gotten significantly better in just the past week and a half.
Like, we thought it was a meat grinder before. It's Ottawa making the moves that they made is, yeah.
And I don't like the optics of the Bruins needing a 36-year-old Patrice Bergeron. He turns 37 in 9 days. And David Krejci turned 36 in April. And you're talking about those needing to be the moves to kind of really put it together for Boston. Those aren't the best optics at all. I mean, Endo especially. I mean, God, you for a fellow Atlantic Division team, like I know you have similar concerns that I do, obviously, with the teams in the Atlantic getting a bit better.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this before, and I said that you're basically your franchise right now kind of hinges on the fact that you need to fit two guys. Possibly, you're running around trying to grab two centers who are like old as shit, and by NHL standards, because the game's getting younger, the game's getting faster. They can still compete, but probably at the same level. I'm not really sure. It's going to be really interesting for you guys to see what's going to go on there, and honestly, I'm all for it if they get them and they turn the clock back a little bit and they keep going the way that they've been. It'll be awesome, but at the same time, it'll suck to see incompetence from management and wanting to chase old bones to kind of keep that old tactic together. It reminds me of a little bit of the Detroit Red Wings when they were trying to keep the streak alive. And they kept bringing in like older names and older players. It's like, we're doing all right. We have no prospects, but look, we got this guy.
We signed Justin Abdelkader and Danny DeKeyser to big money to keep the streak going. That's actually a really fair and incredibly depressing comparison. And well done. We'll leave it at that. Yes, and that was something else you didn't get to talk about on the pod was Don Sweeney's contract extension, and Bruce Cassidy. We saw the news of Bruce Cassidy being hired in Vegas when I was in Finland. Which,
yeah.
Oh,
well, yeah, dude.
No fun times. We'll talk about the Buffalo Sabres. Their moves so far here in free agency, they signed goaltender Eric Comrie, 2-year deal worth just under $2 million. Kind of banking on him to improve a little bit. You know, they lost Dustin Tokarski, so why not? They signed Ilya Lyubushkin, Leafs legend, 2 years, just under $3 million. Kept Victor Olofsson for 2 years at just under $5 million, which is pricey, but they can afford to do it. And they also signed some other depth. That leaves them with $25 million in cap space after Ben Bishop's LTIR would kick in. That's right. Again, the Sabres have Ben Bishop's dead contract. Easily, they could be in on the top guys. And I mean, I don't know about you, but Nazem Kadri going to Buffalo and being so close to Toronto and that media circus and doing well in Buffalo, please?
That'd be fun. I would like
I would
that.
love that.
And you know what? Buffalo is not in too bad a shape. I mean, they're still Buffalo, but
Yeah.
again, it's really looking like they made a really, really good trade when they shipped out Eichel. Tuck has
Funny
been
how that
good.
works, huh?
Yeah. Tuck is like they really did a good job of recreating that gap in the aggregate. And yeah, if they get a name like Kadri, again, it's Krebs, right? What?
Yeah. Yep, they got
Yeah,
Krebs.
weird. Yeah, Peyton Krebs. I think at this point he's definitely looking like 2C material at least.
Oh, you mean it's difficult to keep track of all the prospects Vegas have gotten rid of?
Vegas high rollers.
Holy
Yeah, I know.
shit.
If you look at the math of what Vegas gave up to get Eichel, technically now that they've gotten rid of Pacioretty, essentially to keep him, to get him and keep him. Now it's essentially they sacrificed Suzuki, Krebs, Tuck, multiple firsts, multiple seconds, like even crazy. Shiny new toy.
Honestly, it's one of those things, and I'll let Endo speak on this in a second. It's one of those things where Vegas, right? We look back at the Pacioretty trade. Should Mark Bergevin have traded Max Pacioretty? No. But he did very well in the deal. That's my opinion, at least. I think Montreal should have kept Pacioretty because he's a hell of a player. At the same time, did they do great in the return? Yes. Same thing for Buffalo. The idea of trading Jack Eichel, stupid? Yes. But the return they got is incredible. What is the common factor in those two trades? Fucking Vegas. Unbelievable. I'll leave it at that. We'll talk about Vegas again a little bit more, really when Carolina comes up here in a second. But yeah, Endo, any thoughts on Buffalo? What might happen here?
I'm interested in the goalie situation too. What you said, they brought in Comrie. I know they signed Malcolm Subban to like a small extension.
Yeah,
but
Craig
like,
Anderson, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, all four of them are under contract.
Yeah, so I think it just might be a carousel to figure out who's going to be their guy, because I think they're going to probably be in a weird situation where they probably are in the looking to grab a top pick this upcoming year. So
not
I think
for the first quarter of the season, they're going to play like a playoff team and then fall off a cliff.
As they do. Yeah, I still have Buffalo as like I have Montreal right now as the worst team in the Atlantic. I think that's fair. And then the problem is I have Buffalo in that second spot, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're shit. It's just the teams around them. Like that Atlantic division is fucking absurd.
Gross.
At this point.
Yeah, it's
gross.
The
best way to put it. We'll head out west really quickly. The Calgary Flames. Who, yep, there you go. That's okay. Carolina. Calgary, they've kept Nikita Zadorov and Trevor Lewis. They've brought in a lot of depth, but they have lost Johnny Gaudreau, Calle Yarncroke today, and most importantly, Erica Branson. They have $18 million in cap space right now, maybe closer to $25 million if Sean Monahan is LTIR next season. But $18 million right now as it stands to sign Oliver Sheelington, Andrew Mangiapane, and Matthew Tkachuk.
He's still RFA or is he U now?
All three of those guys are RFAs.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I cannot imagine them being able to be in on Kadri, Klingberg, or a big RFA like Patrick Laine when you have those three guys unsigned and only $18 million to work with.
Yep. Kachuk's getting 8 or 9, like for sure. Like there's no way he gets less than that. Look, he was smart. He waited. No, Josh Norris got 8. Kachuk's like fucking 9 at least, dude. Like after the season he had.
Yeah, that was a kind of big talking point of some of the dudes that signed early, kind of opening up that door of more money-making potential for the remaining RFAs, for sure.
Yeah.
Calgary, you look great this year. You make the playoffs, but you lose to Edmonton in the Battle of Alberta, and I think that is going to be a heavy regret for a long, long time. Because this roster, all of a sudden, I loved it. We praised Darryl Sutter all season long. This roster, all of a sudden, yikes, is the best way to put it.
It's kind of crazy how it's not just like, it's not that Gaudreau was like the glue. It's just they didn't have an incredible amount of scoring depth. So when you lose a first liner like Gaudreau and everyone has to shift, all of a sudden you're fucked. Like that's how it was with the Sharks when they Pavelski, okay, we'll get Kane, but you didn't you didn't have the depth at all.
I was gonna say the Sharks comparison's great because we did see that for the longest time with them, where it's like, all right, next man up. But they were so good for so long. Not the Calgary's in that same like contender status this time, but you're so good for so long that the next man up, it gets thinner and thinner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's at the point where it's like, all right, Calgary, and your next men up are role players like Trevor Lewis and Brett Ritchie, and okay. I mean, I don't know. I completely understand the negativity and the pessimism surrounding the Flames fan base right now, because it's tough to watch from the outside looking in. Like, that is a team that had hopes where it's just like, oh, what even are they next season? Which is rough because that's where they were last season when we were debating if they were going to trade Johnny Gaudreau, who was a pending UFA.
Yep.
The Carolina Hurricanes. Fuck's sake. They acquire defenseman Brent Burns. 34% retained salary, equates to $2.72 million, held on by the Sharks. So it's Brent Burns on $5.3 million essentially, and Lane Peterson, depth player, in exchange for Stephen Lawrence, Etu Makaniemi, and a third-round pick in 2023.
It's conditional. I don't know the condition on it, but I know
they get the higher of the 2 third-round picks. So it is a third-round pick regardless.
Okay.
For Carolina, you didn't have to give up much to get Brent Burns. And unfortunately, like I see the issue from the Sharks' perspective of that's all we got for Brent Burns. But at the same time, it is a 38-year-old making over $5 million.
37.
And
but yeah.
if you are the Sharks, you needed something. A big contract
needed to
had to go.
happen.
Imagine what the hell you'd have to give up to get rid of Mark-Edouard Vlasic. It's like Brent Burns was more likely.
He was the one to move in that scenario. He was the only one you could move. And with the new GM, you knew a big move was going to come. I'm not happy with the return. But again, I think this really hinges on if Makaniemi is actually what he did in Chicago, or if he can sort of replicate that over a longer, and the Chicago Wolves, I mean, if he can sort of replicate that over a longer period of time, because it was a great sample size, but it's very, very small, like a 20-game sample size of like a .922 save percentage and a .209 goals against in the playoffs or something like that. Promising, but again, goalies are voodoo. We know that, and you never fucking know when one's going to be good or when one's going to be not. So if that's the big wild card for me, and the draft pick is a third, the thing with me, it's like you retained. Yeah. That retention needs to be worth more. I understand the term is 3 years. But you heard it from Rod. You hear it from everyone. You hear it from the Sharks year after year. The man just came off another 55-point season, 50-plus points on the blue line, which is great. And if he's that old, he's a fitness guru, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be solid for at least 2 out of these 3 years. In my opinion, that retention, you needed to get more off that retention. I understand that maybe they pushed with the cap dump shit. But, yeah, Waddell, what a fucking offseason for him.
And it gets better. As Carolina acquires Max Pacioretty, and not a throwaway piece, in my opinion, Dylan Coughlin. I think he could be a third pair guy at the NHL level from the Vegas Golden Knights for the Marc-Andre Fleury special. Fucking nothing. Future considerations. This trade obviously screams more about Vegas's absurdity than it is necessarily about Carolina. But at the same time, Carolina were the ones to get this deal done. How many other teams that should have been on Max Pacioretty weren't, and allowed Carolina to get this deal done? Ridiculous. And then they also brought in Andre Kasha on a cheap deal, leaves them with $4 million, potentially $8 million if Jake Gardner's back on LTIR, to sign Martin Necas and Ethan Bear. So they're not going to be in on big names. I don't know if $4 million will be enough to bring in Necas and Bear. It should be. They're pretty much done in terms of big changes. And LOL, they're pretty much done after bringing in Max Pacioretty and Brent Burns to an already solid team.
Sick. Yeah.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah. I'm going to like seeing Brent Burns next to probably Slavin.
Yeah.
And, Brent Burns is going to be firing that fucking puck at the net a lot. Like, I would have liked to see him go to Dallas more, simply because imagine the deflections.
Fair.
And especially after Klingberg departed too. But yeah, I would have loved to see Burns and Pavs reunited, but he's in a great situation. Either way, he would have loved Carolina or Texas with his fucking his lifestyle, I'll say.
Oh man.
Endo, as a fellow fan of an Eastern Conference team where there are realistic matchups against Carolina every single postseason, this fucking sucks a lot.
Yeah, Carolina's getting good. There's been a lot of good management on their part. This move with picking up Pacioretty and Coughlin, that's a gift. That is something else, like for nothing, essentially.
It's hilarious that Pacioretty got traded for nothing. Like, oh,
like they to bring him over there was like a whole bunch of players and like picks, and then he gets sent off for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like they say the house always wins, but holy shit,
he was their best player. Like Vegas's best goal scorer.
Yeah,
I don't fucking and then they struggled to score goals at the end of the season. Anyway, we'll get to them, but I can't help but just continue to pick away at them because I've been fucking saying this for years, and finally it's happening, and no one believed me. Y'all laughed at me. All right. Anyway,
the Chicago hockey team.
Boo! Skip! Vito! Get out of this.
They signed Max Domi and Andreas Athanasiou to matching 1 year, $3 million per deals. They also brought in Leafs legend Colin Blackwell and some other depth. They have $10.5 million in cap space with Kurashev and Caleb Jones to sign as RFAs. Notice how Anaheim has $30 million, but Chicago only has $10.5 million. That is, of course, because of $1.2 million in buyouts from Connolly and Borgstrom. Now a $5.5 million recapture penalty from Duncan Keith. You picked up Peter Mrazek's $3.8 million. You're paying Seth Jones $9.5 million. Tanking, I don't necessarily disagree with it. Obviously, the way that they went about the tank, Sin hasn't gotten to talk about the Alex DeBrincat trade yet. This is a team that's looking to suck, and aside from a passionate fan base, yeah, they suck in basically every way imaginable. That's how I'd put it at this point.
There's no better way to start a rebuild by trading a 24-year-old and a 21-year-old. Congrats, Chicago.
A 24-year-old who handled the media better than our amazing leadership of Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, whose initial reaction was to defend their GM. And, Duncan Keith, Hall of Fame career on the ice, but what great leadership he showed by refusing to be questioned in the investigation.
He's fucking...
I always say it. I don't have anything against Chicago fans. It's got nothing to do with 2013. That fan base is fucking incredible. That organization is fucking rotten throughout. Like, it's from the inside out. That organization's fucking rotten, and I will feel that way until there's an ownership change, until there's a branding change.
It's a bad apple fucking tree there. Every single apple is bad. And you traded the good ones.
Yeah, again, I said it for almost this entire year. DeBrincat should have been the new captain of that team, and they fucking traded him.
Yeah, it's disgusting. Good for Ottawa, though, because, you got a winner.
Even better.
Plus, they traded his ass when he just had a little baby, too. Not that I don't know. I'm probably just looking for things to chirp him about, but yeah.
Fuck it, do it.
Man just had an infant. Like, I understand, you think of the Moneyball thing, it's like, whatever, they're professional players, they can handle this, but yeah. Man just had an infant.
Chicago can kick rocks. Do we leave it at that?
Yeah.
I think we leave it at that.
Yep.
The Colorado
Chicago
Avalanche.
can kick Rocky Wirtz is... All right. Please go.
He's back, everybody.
Please
Did you miss him?
Please clap.
The Colorado Avalanche have re-signed Stanley Cup hero Arturi Lehkonen 5 years at $4.5. Nifty little contract. He's earned that. Darren Helm back on a pretty cheap deal. And Josh Manson, 4 years, $4.5 million. Ugh, is my initial response.
I don't understand this one at all. It doesn't make sense analytically, and it doesn't make sense eye test.
This is the one that kicks off our consistent theme of the day of, are you big? Do you play physical? Have money. Yeah. Oh, you're right-handed too? Have even more money. That is the theme. And Josh Manson is one of numerous defenders who was significantly overpaid, in my opinion. And that could come back to haunt Colorado, because they're paying a lot of money now on the defensive side of things. And I'll actually get that exact number up, because I was pretty surprised at this. Obviously, $9 million for Makar, $6 million for Eric Johnson, $5 million for Sam Girard, $4.5 Josh Manson, 4.1 Devon Taves.
That's 5 guys making north of 4. You shouldn't have that. That should not be a thing. And you're only 4 guys max making north of 4 like that.
It's pretty pricey, and their forward depth is going to be interesting to see how they fill that out.
Yeah.
Elsewhere for Colorado, though, I mean, they signed some of the depth options. $4 million in open space. So not in for Nazem Kadri unless they move somebody. And I don't think it's worth it, because McKinnon is coming up on the final year of his deal. So a big money move for Kadri is going to be risky for McKinnon. A reminder, Nathan McKinnon is currently making $6.3 million. He's about to double that.
He should, yeah, absolutely. When is Eric Johnson's contract up?
At the end of this upcoming year.
Okay,
at the end of this upcoming year. So that's where a lot of them.
I figured it had to be coming. Yeah, I figured it had to be coming up soon.
Yeah, and based off of how he was such at the forefront of a lot of the media after the fact, I don't see him moving this year. No. It's pretty clear he's like the big locker room guy there. He was the longest serving member of that team. Yeah, I don't see him going anywhere. So Colorado, again, a lot of their business is likely done. But, you know, they do lose pieces. They lose Kadri. They lose Burakovsky. And then, you know, probably overpay to keep Josh Manson. I don't know. Like, Colorado's still going to be a damn good team next year. But, like, if someone's like, yeah, they're my number one choice to win the cup next year, I don't know. I don't know, man. Georgiev in goal now. Again, that forward depth took a pretty damn big hit. I mean, yeah, again, you kept Nichushkin and Lehkonen on pretty good deals, but I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how they fill out that roster and what it looks like on opening night.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I think you just got to get some depth with that remaining money. I don't know. Like, you might just take some swings on some weird ones, but yeah. Whatever, they won the cup. So honestly, I would take that shit. Fucking win the cup. I don't care if the team sucks the next year. I would not at all.
Mills, any thoughts on Colorado, or do we move on to maybe the most interesting team to talk about, at least in my opinion? The silence speaks volumes. All right, cool.
I don't know. I don't know anything much to talk about. Besides,
you don't have to have an opinion on every team. It's cool.
You know what? I feel like I should, because I am on this. I'm an active member. I'm a contributor. I'm a patriot. I'm
a hero.
I'm a man. I'm a bird. I'm a walrus. No, I don't know. I don't know why they got rid of their goalie. I don't know why they got rid of Kemper, because they didn't want to pay him, I guess. But
yeah,
that's the one thing I'm kind of upset with. Like, I know he didn't play as great as he should have in the playoffs, but I don't know how I feel about getting rid of a goaltender. If they did okay-ish, it wasn't terrible, right?
He didn't even get a crap load of money from Washington, but we'll talk that towards the end of the show.
Right.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. There's been some interesting moves. Joe Sakic isn't even the GM anymore. He moved up to president of hockey ops. So
yeah, it's just a promotion.
That way they could keep assistant coach or assistant GM Chris McFarland, who a lot of people were starting to talk to and wanted to bring over. So a lot of changes for the Avs, but they won the cup. Who gives a shit? The Columbus Blue Jackets signed some guy named Johnny Gaudreau for 7 years at $9.75 per. The biggest free agent signing in organization history.
There you go.
And gigantic, given the fact that everyone's like, oh, he's probably going to go to Philly or New Jersey. They also signed arguably the worst contract
Mm-hmm.
at face value, and when you look further into it, by signing Eric Goodbranson, 4 years, $4 million. Remember what I
don't
said about
understand. Yeah,
big and physical, overpaid. It's still a trend. But what makes the Goodbranson deal worse is they now have $3.1 million in cap space with 2 RFAs. Emil Bemstrom and Patrick fucking Laine. What are you doing giving Eric Goodbranson $4 million when you have $7 million in cap space and still need to sign Patrick Laine?
I don't
If
understand.
Laine does not get traded or offer sheeted, then you know that the GMs are all buddy-buddy because someone needs to make Jarmo Kekalainen pay for this.
Mm-hmm.
Do not let him off the hook on this. Patrick Laine is right now out there almost free for the goddamn taking. Again, the Goodrow deal, amazing for the team, the fans in Columbus, but holy shit, like I don't understand it. Like, what is this Goodbranson signing when you already have a good amount of young defenders on that team? You fucking robbed Chicago of Adam Boqvist. You just drafted David Yarosek and fucking, the other guy's name's escaping my mind right now, and they just signed him today or yesterday as well. Blue Jackets fans are yelling at me. I can't find the guy's name. Denton Matejchuk. Yeah, for as much of a positive as it is for Columbus, I genuinely don't understand Jarmo Kekalainen's move to not prioritize Patrick Laine after signing Johnny Gaudreau. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's weird. That's all I got to say. Yeah, that's terrible asset management, in my opinion.
And again, they don't have a ton of money to do much, let alone sign Patrick Laine for $3.1 million. So we'll talk about potential destinations for Laine coming up, because there are teams that really could use someone like him. And he gets thrown into the mix now just as much as an Nazem Kadri does for a team that could use a high-end forward, because Patrick Laine is still a high-end forward. He might not be, the Matthews versus Laine debate might be dead in the water, but Patrick Laine is still a fucking damn good player, in Columbus, I think, just got eyes for Johnny Gaudreau and kind of just decided to ignore Patrick, and they might very much regret that. The Dallas Stars did not go for Brent Burns. They did go for defenseman Colin Miller, 2-year deal at $185, which is solid. And then they swung for the fences, picking up forward from the Florida Panthers Mason Marchment on a 4-year deal worth $4.5 million per.
It's an extra $1 million than I would have paid, but good for him.
Yeah. So Marchment, 27 years old, coming off of the best year of his career, obviously, with Florida, 47 points in 54 games. You are banking a lot on him being able to maintain that pace. And, I mean, if you're wrong, like, that screams like, oh, you were wrong. Here's your Matt Bolesky. Sorry to bring that up, Bruins fans, but that's what it screams, to me at least. And it leaves them with $11.5 million to sign Jason Robertson and Jake Ottinger. So they have no room to really go all in on a big free agent. Like, Mason Marchment was their big free agent. Now get those RFA signings done. You might get a couple of the cheap pieces here and there, but that's about it. I respect the boldness to be like, Mason Marchment's our guy, but that is one of the biggest, like, boom or bust signings of this window.
It really is. It's, again, he looked great, but also, like, the quality of competition he would have been going up against where he was playing on that roster. Like you said, you're banking a lot to hope he gets there. This isn't a guy who's going to grow in, develop more. He's 27. Like, he's right in his prime. Like, this is the height of his hockey. Paying him $4.5 million, you need 50 points a season these next 4 seasons to really make that worth it. Like, yeah. And in that Dallas system,
I mean, new head coach with Pete DeBoer.
Is it really that new? Yeah.
Here's our new system.
We have the old system. Yeah. we have a Rick bonus at home. Rick bonus at home is Pete DeBoer.
So Dallas, interesting is the best way to put it. And then there's Detroit and the Yzer plan. They went on a spending spree and a half. They brought in some depth, but at the same time, they brought in former member of the Chicago hockey team, Dominik Kubalik, 2 years at $2.5 million. Defenseman Oli Mata for 1 year at $2.25 million. Andrew Kopp, 5 years at $5.6 million to be their 2C. David Perron, 2 years at $4.75, which is a fucking steal.
Yep.
Elite third pairing defenseman Mark Pysyk at $850K for this upcoming year, which is ridiculous.
I don't know how he did that.
All of those signings make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then there's one that fucking
Sherrod?
doesn't.
Oh yeah.
Ben Sherrod, 4 years at $4.75 million. Are you big and do you play physics? If I could skate, I'd be a fucking millionaire. That's all you gotta do is just run around and hit people like a madman if you're big, and someone will pay you a shitload of money in the NHL. I missed out. I could have been a fucking millionaire.
You messed up on the scouting as well, man. When we played floorball, you almost got taken out by that Dutchman. So
it's true. I tried to be nice. I can't hit him with the back at you X Factor.
Yeah.
Not 5 seconds into our first game, goddammit. Well, yeah. Tougie got he got deported from Finland. Why? He reverse checked the Dutchman 5 seconds into a floorball game. The man's a fucking scientist or some shit.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we played floorball with like molecular scientists. Like they
fucking doctors.
They were all smart as shit.
Ridiculous. And there's these two fucking Americans who are like, yeah, let's do that hockey. It was a fun time. Detroit, man, like I said, all those other signings amazing. Trust the Yzer plan, but Ben Sherrod, like, it defies all logic. It really does. Like, how did you have to pay Ben Sherrod that much money to secure him?
Yeah,
I want Ben Sherrod's agent.
It's the right-handed D thing. It's the right shot D thing where they're in such a high demand always, and then there's that just everyone loves a physical defenseman. Like, I guess, but
is he even right-handed? He might be a lefty.
I thought Sherrod was right-handed. If he's left-handed,
fucking lefty, he would have gotten 7 if he was a righty.
It's even worse.
7. Fuck.
Who am I thinking of who's a righty? Is it Petrie? No, even he's a lefty.
Branson's a righty.
Oh, I know that, but I was thinking of someone else who was on Montreal. Wasn't Sherrod on Montreal, or am I just completely off?
He was on Montreal and got traded to Florida at the deadline.
Is Petrie a fucking righty? Who am I thinking of on that team?
Joel Armia.
He's a forward.
He's a forward.
Sit there and eat your popcorn.
Yeah.
I'm eating Dippin' Dots now. The Hershey Dots are pretty good.
All right.
There
Fuck.
you go.
You move on. I'm going to check
$5 Hershey. So Detroit now has $10 million.
Yeah, he's a righty. Petrie's a righty. Okay.
No wonder why he's making almost $7 million. Detroit has $10 million in cap space, potentially more if Robbie Fabry's LTIR'd. They only have to sign Zadina and Wallman. They do have a logjam at center, though, so like Nazem Kadri might not be the best fit. But $10 million. They managed to sign some damn good contracts and Ben Sherrod to one of the worst deals of this free agency period, and they still have $10 million in space. So, like I said, trust the Yzer plan, but that's the first real head scratcher from Stevie in a long, long time where I'm like, I just like, I don't see it aside from big and physical and character, but you don't have to pay almost $5 million a season for that.
Yeah.
So interesting times for Detroit, but again, like we were saying with Endo, they're better. I don't know if they're necessarily playoff team yet. I still probably have Ottawa ahead of them. But, man, they're not that far off. And I don't think Leafs fans have anything to worry about. It's more so Bruins fans where we're just like, oh, fuck, Detroit's getting better. We have these issues. But then again, for Toronto, I mean, they're risking it with their goaltending, as we'll get to. So there's not as much wiggle room to slip up. And the Bruins have slipped up. The Leafs have had a tendency to slip up. As we'll march on here. All right, everybody. So a quick little break to the regularly scheduled programming. Unfortunately, as it would turn out, Sin back from Finland, and we end up having some audio technical issues for this kind of middle section of the podcast. So for these next few teams, I'm just going to kind of recap what we talked about and kind of give our general opinions on it. So we start off there. You just heard about the Edmonton Oilers. We start off with the Florida Panthers in terms of the moves they've made. Rudolph Balcers, Nick Cousins, Mark Stahl, some other depth. They are currently about $3 million over the cap with no obvious LTIR candidate. Yes, someone like Anthony Duclair is going to miss the start of the season, but not all of it. So it still seems like there is a move or two to come for the Panthers as they kind of look to get back after, again, what was an incredible regular season, but a very, very disappointing postseason. So not too much to discuss there. Time will tell. And it's the same story here for the LA Kings as well. Like, they kept Brendan Lemieux on a 1-year deal worth $1.35 million, but that leaves them with 2.3 to sign RFAs Gabe Vilardi, Mikey Anderson, and Sean Dursey. There's no way. I simply can't imagine 2.3 million being enough. So that's another team where we are looking at a trade here, most likely in the very near future, between those two teams to sort out their cap situations. The Minnesota Wild, nothing to talk about. 4.3 million in space after signing a bunch of depth. They do still have room for those secondary type of options that are out there on the market, but it's fairly obvious the Suter and Parise buyouts are still really, really hurting the Minnesota Wild. Montreal, same story, not much to talk about. A whole lot of depth, but they're basically at the cap ceiling, and they still need to sign Kirby Dach. Maybe Jonathan Drouin stays on LTIR to open up cap space. Maybe Carey Price sits out again. But if not, they're another team that needs to make a move. So there really wasn't too much discussion here with these teams on the pod when I was here with Sid and Endo. But then that brings us to Nashville. And so far, they've only signed depth. Leaves them with $9.2 million in space to sign John Leonard and Yakov Trenin. That obviously won't take up that much of that cap. So they, 100 million, billion, gajillion % need to be in on Nazem Kadri or a top line RFA like Patrick Laine. There's zero excuse, and it's what they're missing. Again, goaltending with UC Soros, the backups, we'll see kind of how that works out now with Kevin Lankinen and probably still Connor Ingram. Defensively, no team in the league can match the left side depth that they have with Yossi Ekholm and now Ryan McDonough. It's unbelievable. They just need that bit of offensive firepower to add to the likes of what we saw from Matt Duchene. Of course, they kept Philip Forsberg. So Preds fans, that is what you need to hope to see your team do if you really want to kind of secure a playoff spot next year. I think they can make it anyway, but then I think they could really surprise if they add a piece of that caliber. And then it's interesting because this re-record is taking place the next day. We recorded this on Friday the 15th. It's now Saturday the 16th. And as we talk about the New Jersey Devils, well, something new just popped up. Number one, we already talked about the Eric Holla trade, but that is now not the only trade that the New Jersey Devils have made, as they have acquired defender John Marino from the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for Ty Smith and a 2023 third-round pick. Really interesting spot here. The Devils get the better of the two players right now. There's no doubt about that. John Marino, who's making, I think, 4.4 against the cap. He's in, I think, year 2 of 6 of a new contract extension. John Marino is the better of the two players right now. He is a pure defensive defenseman. And for the Devils, I really do like that addition, because Ty Smith, unfortunately, I think, the Devils' defensive situation has really changed rapidly, where Ty Smith was almost kind of desperately needed to play minutes and be put into a position that he just couldn't succeed in at the moment. He needed that bit of extra development time, and the Devils couldn't really give it to him. So now you have a situation where, again, the Devils are better right now with John Marino than Ty Smith. But Ty Smith is still, I believe, 22 years old, and the Penguins could give him that little bit of extra time to develop that he could really need to reach his true potential. As, if I am not mistaken, I don't remember where within the first round he was, but yeah, I mean, Ty Smith, former first round pick. I think it was like 16th or 17th overall, something like that. He was a late teens pick. That's all I remember. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly, but yeah, that's a very, very interesting trade. And as you'll hear us talk about in a minute, with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Actually, I was going to talk about them anyway. One of the things we were going to talk about with them is that they were over the cap by about $200K with Kasperi Kapanen being an RFA. So we were literally saying, and I have it right here on our script, more than likely a defender was going to be moved. Marino and Pettersson's names were out there, and Marino does get moved. So for New Jersey, I like this deal a lot. You know, they didn't land Johnny Gaudreau, but they did also land Andre Palat, 5-year deal, $6 million per season. They landed some depth as well. And now I believe they have about $11 to $12 million in cap space, maybe a bit more if Jonathan Bernier is on LTIR. And that leaves them room to sign Jesper Bratt, Miles Wood, Boqvist, and Vitek Vanacek as well. So they still have a little bit of money perhaps as in play even after the Marino pickup to go out and get somebody. So I really do like what New Jersey's done so far this offseason, despite not securing Johnny Gaudreau. And that kind of transitions us into talking about the New York Islanders, who haven't secured anybody. Literally nothing. As of the time of recording this, they have $11.2 million to sign Dobson, Romanov, and Kiefer Bellows. They didn't land Johnny Gaudreau. The bulk of our conversation was, hey, no disrespect to a Hall of Famer, someone who has literally changed the game of hockey. Lou Lamoriello needs to go. Like, I'm sorry, this is inexcusable for the New York Islanders. Like, I get it. Last season, yes, some of their struggles significantly chalked up to the arena not being done at the start of the year and then being on a massive road trip. But that roster obviously has some holes that they need to fix. Barry Trotz is now gone, which is also a scary proposition still from the outside looking in. The Islanders are in a pretty rough spot here, all things considered. The Rangers, well, we talked about the Emberson-Nemeth trade. They signed Vinny Trocheck to replace Ryan Strome, 7 years at $5.625 million, which I like Vinny Trocheck. I would have liked him on Boston, not for that price, not for that term. Someone who had a major, we'll go with a lower body injury. I believe it was a knee, not all that long ago. Yaroslav Halakhin is a backup, which he certainly looks past his prime. Ryan Carpenter, some other depth. It leaves him with about $4.8 million to sign Capo Caco, which they'll be able to do. But then how much more are you going to be able to bring in? And talking about the Rangers, again, I look at that roster and I'm sorry, but there's some severe depth issues. Like, they have their star players and their core intact. Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, Adam Fox on defense. The best goalie in the league right now. I mean, you could still probably mention Vasilevsky over Shesterkin, but end of the day, I still put the Rangers in like that second tier of like, yes, you could win a Stanley Cup, but you are not in my favorite category to win the Stanley Cup, because that just the depth issues that they have on their roster right now. And again, $4.8 million and needing to sign Capo Caco. I don't know how much more money they're going to have to play with. Ottawa, I'm very upset that the conversation over these next two teams was lost. But Ottawa, I mean, they traded Connor Brown to Washington for a second. It would have been nice if you could have kept him. Definitely, because he was under $4 million, and actually it puts Washington into a weird cap situation, which we talk about later on the show. But it leaves them obviously with $11.6 million to sign Alex Formenton, Matthew Joseph, and Eric Brandstrom. So a decent amount of that money will go to those three players. They have about $5 million in dead cap between buyouts and retained salary. But the big news is Claude Giroux is there. They bring back Josh Norris now. Sin as well, all of us kind of agreed, like, yeah, it's a bit of an overpayment for Josh Norris, but you are paying him for what he's going to become rather than what he is now. It's a little bit surprising that there wasn't a bridge deal there, was one of Sin's big points, and I can't help but agree with him on that. But there's no denying, you don't need to hear it from me to be like, oh, yeah, no, I guess that is the case. The Ottawa Senators are really, really pushing for a playoff spot this upcoming season. And the best thing I can kind of do here is kind of go to their current depth chart on Cap Friendly, which lists their top 6 forwards as this: Tkachuk, Norris, Giroux, DeBrincat, Stützle, Batherson. That is dynamite. That is so good. So Ottawa looking all right. That defense still has some questions. They acquired Cam Talbot, but no doubt they are a better team. There were people wondering if they were going to push for a playoff spot next year before these big moves. And certainly now the hype train is ready to leave the station, but we'll see what happens. That Atlantic Division is a bit of a nightmare. The only team that you can really say for sure isn't going to make the playoffs is Montreal. And if they do, then my God, let's never bet on who's going to make the playoffs ever again, because it's just totally unpredictable. But Ottawa, A+ offseason so far. And the other end of the spectrum with an F grade for me is the Philadelphia Flyers. Flyers fans, I'll keep this brief. Nick Delorier, 4 years, $175 million, no trade clauses included. They bring back Justin Braun, some other depth. They have about 700, actually a little bit less now than 700K because they did sign Morgan Frost, but McEwen, Tippett are still RFAs. No vision. That was the way we summed up our conversation surrounding the Philadelphia Flyers. There is no vision. There's no direction for this team. The best you could say is they're intentionally tanking, but they're not doing it well. Chuck Fletcher needs to go. If I look through the full list of GMs that who's the list of who I'd like to have the most lead my favorite team and who's at the bottom. I've had my critiques of Don Sweeney, but it could always be worse as long as Chuck Fletcher is an NHL GM. Flyers fans, I'm sorry. Like, legitimately, I'm sorry. This is a team that I thought 2-3 years ago really could start to make a push for a cup, and this team has been gutted, and it's only going to get worse from here. I mean, you can say or only say that it's going to get worse until Chuck Fletcher's gone. Brutal, absolutely brutal. Maybe a year from now, we're talking about how you got Connor Bedard through the draft lottery, and maybe it all works out. But even then, do you want Chuck Fletcher leading the way to set up a team around Connor Bedard to try and win? I know I wouldn't. Then the Pittsburgh Penguins, obviously, we just talked about the John Marino deal. They signed Drake Caggiula, Josh Archibald, other depth, kept all their big guns, and added Jan Ruda, 3-year deal at $275, thanks to Victor Hedman for that contract. And again, now they have that little bit of cap space. We'll see what happens with Kasperi Kapanen and company. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of what ended up getting cut out of the show. Again, we apologize for that, but it was completely out of our hands. But again, the big talking points here, I'd say the big teams to focus on. Nashville, make a big splash, please. Now is a great chance. The Islanders and Flyers really need new direction. And the Ottawa Senators, big winners of the past couple of weeks. Let's get back to the rest of the show with all three of us here and ready to go. All right, so again, moving on from Philadelphia, we stay in Pennsylvania, though. Pittsburgh Penguins, Caggiula, Archibald, other depth signings. Their big guy right now is Jan Ruda, 3 years at just under $3 million, thanks to Victor Hedman for getting him that contract. They kept their big guns, though. They kept Malkin, they kept Letang, so pretty good for them on that front. They are technically over the cap by about $200K, which isn't that bad. Obviously, you can move people, but Kapanen is an RFA, which is why you're seeing all the names like John Marino, Marcus Pettersson being thrown out there about potentially being moved. They have to move somebody in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but excellent job keeping the guys that they kept. Like the Letang and Malkin deals are pretty damn good.
I do think it's concerning, though, that we heard that Sidney Crosby really had to push for Malkin to stay. Like those,
I think it was he had to push to get them to talk again.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah,
like it is, but also we all know how Malkin is. He's a fucking weird dude. Like,
fair enough. I think that's the best way to put it. So, Pittsburgh again, certainly not done with their off season, which brings us to the San Jose Sharks. Now we have talked about the Burns trade. Free agent signings so far, role players for the most part. Oscar Lindblom, Philly, Nico Sturm, no relation to Marco, Matt Benning, Marcus Nudivara. They have $6.8 million in cap space with a bunch of RFAs to sign, none of whom will be overly expensive. I mean, Shimolevsky, Gadjevich, Gregor, Kunin, Lawrence, Mario Ferraro, Capo Kakkonen. So they won't have too much left over. But yeah, in terms of like any big free agent plays, like there's nothing there. Like their big move was, hey, they got rid of Brent Burns, the majority of Brent Burns' contract.
Yeah, what we're basically seeing is the new direction unfold. Kind of what we expected throughout this offseason. Again, I'm not happy with getting rid of Balcers at all. I didn't like it. Worried the shit out of me. Them essentially letting Dahlin go and buying out Rudy Balcers, who they don't really get any sort of big buyout penalty for because he was under the age of 25 or whatever.
Yeah.
still, to me though, those players are both pretty good analytically. Balcer is more. That worried the shit out of me because also the departure of Doug Wilson Jr., a very, very analytics heavy draft guy, really worried me that the new regime was moving away from analytics. I was terrified there for a couple days. Like, absolutely. Like, I didn't like the draft too much. And then to see Doug Wilson Jr. go, and then to see them not, keep around a couple guys who are pretty good analytically. Balcer's especially good analytically. But Lindblom, Sturm, somehow Benning and Nudivara are all very, very good analytically. Not very, very good, not incredible, but they're good. Yes, those are solid players. And I'm like, okay, that makes me feel a bit better because I was very, very worried there for a while. So it's just essentially Greer doing what he needs to do to get the roster type that he wants to put together. Dumping Burns off. It had to happen eventually. That frees up a lot of options for us in the next couple of years, but especially this one with, bringing in those type of players and having the money. The one there that it might be interesting to try to get signed is Ferraro. He's been playing in an elevated role, probably not where he should quite be. Not incredible analytically, but everyone loves how he plays, and he's one of those that Greer wants. Competitor, works hard. That's what Greer has openly said what he wants the direction to be. So Shimolevsky, very, very little. Gadjevich, fucking fourth line at best. Kunin's an interesting one. The trade, I don't know.
It's just
I don't
kind
know
of
if
a
I
deal
like that trade.
With he and John Leonard,
it's a deal. Yeah, it's a deal. And Leonard unfortunately didn't turn out to what we wanted to be. He looked, promising at first, but he never could put it together. That man could not put the puck in the back of the net. 0% finishing. So, but again, Kunin is third line at best. Like, at best, he's a fucking bottom sixer.
Right. So,
yeah.
It's going to be a rough year for the Sharks, but if there was ever a time to have a rough year, it's going to be with this draft up ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. But they're going to be a tough team to play against.
There you go. The Seattle Kraken signing everybody underneath the sun to bolster the Coachella Valley Firebirds. The big signings. Andre Burakovsky is mentioned. 5 years of $5.5 million. Not too shabby. Martin Jones, 1 year, $2 million with a 10-team no-trade clause. And Justin Schultz, 2 years, $3 million with a 10-team no-trade clause. They have $9.8 million in space. RFAs, Morgan Geeky, Cole Lind. So could they still land a big fish? Sure. But Ron Francis, his mind, what's the fucking SpongeBob meme? The inner workings of my mind are a fucking enigma or some shit like that. Like,
the inner workings of my mind are an enigma.
Thank you, Endo Mills. That's Ron Francis to me. I'm sorry if that seems like a harsh comparison, but who the fuck knows with this team? Like, as much as we talk about Vegas, there's just something in the water with expansion teams where it's just like, I can't tell what the fuck you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So
they got Shane Wright. Good for them.
Yeah, and they got him signed too. I didn't mention too many, recently drafted. Didn't really mention too many people who were recently drafted that got signed, but yeah, Shane Wright is signed, and I'm sure he'll get a chance.
The way the narrative changed on Shane Wright has been fucking hilarious. I love how quickly Montreal can go from hyping someone up to just absolutely shitting on them. It is admirable how quickly that fan base shifts the narrative. Like, Kotkaniemi, he's good, he's gonna be great. Oh, well, you just traded for a fourth liner. Kotkaniemi sucks. Like. And then Shane Wright. Well, clearly he has attitude problems. Clearly this, clearly
plays
that.
Too
Look
much
at the
Fortnite.
other teams. Yeah,
Oh
holy
God.
shit, man.
It's my best draft night tweet that was incredibly underrated. I was very salty that didn't take off.
Like, if there's one thing about this that I'm pretty sure everyone forgot about is, remember how they treated Carey Price after he got sent down to the A? For one game as like a conditioning stint. He played half the game, and they called him washed, shit, terrible. And in the exact same goddamn season, you know what he did? He carried that fucking team to a Stanley Cup final. He lost still, and was gone for a whole fucking year after that. Because he literally carried that team till he broke. I don't understand Habs fans. Like, you have something great.
They're
You take your
French.
time.
That's it.
Yeah. How about it not? Jesus
What's
Christ.
there to understand?
I don't get the language. Yeah, like I get the language, but just some of the practices. Like, god damn.
I want Endo Mills' thesis on why Montreal is so difficult to understand. I want a full
I
report.
mean, you walk in there, everything's fucking French. So if you don't like, you went to a fucking middle school that like spoke a little bit of French, you're fine. But if you didn't, you're basically shit out of luck. They look at you weird if you speak English at all. This is legitimately true, by the way, too. And like, I love like our Quebec listeners and our Quebecois and the people in Montreal and
no
all around that
Habs
area.
fan listens to this podcast anymore.
You had one Rahil, and then like I guess he kind of just like
He went and
he
started
has
his
his
own.
own show now, so
Yeah.
he got too big for us.
Incredible. St. Louis, not much to talk about really quickly. Robert Thomas got an 8-year, $8 million extension. Josh Norris-esque.
Get paid.
They brought in Achari, Thomas Gray, some other depth. They signed Nick Leddy to a 4-year, $4 million per deal. Okay, that's a choice. Leaves them with $1 million in space with Mikkola as an RFA that they have to sign. So they're pretty much done. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I just, the direction or lack thereof that the Blues have had, puzzling to me at this stage.
Yeah. Fuck them. They could burn. I don't care.
Especially
on to the
just
next one.
how competitive the West is. The Tampa Bay Lightning. First and foremost, I mean, free agency wasn't even really the highlight for them. It was re-signings. Eric Chernak, 8-year extension, $5.2 million. Anthony Cirelli, 8-year extension, $6.25. Mikhail Sergachev, 8-year extension, $8.5 million.
It's pretty high for Sergachev.
Yes.
Man. Like really high for Sergachev.
I think if you'd gotten him closer to the $5-6 million that Chernak got, that would be looked at a lot better. That's too much for Sergachev. The Cirelli deal, though, dare I say, is Bergeron-esque. He's so good defensively that if he can just find that extra offensive touch, that is going to be one of the most egregious steals of a contract in the league. Yeah. So I guess you can afford to overpay Sergachev a little bit given those circumstances, but yeah, that's definitely an overpayment.
Yeah.
From there, they got Hayden Fleury, who I like as like a third pairing defenseman, but then they signed Ian Cole, 1 year, $3 million, and Vladislav Nemesnikov 1 year at 2.5 with a 20-team no trade. So they're slightly over the cap still, even once Seabrook's LTIR fits in. So they're pretty much done. I don't understand, though, if you're going to commit $5.5 million to Nemesnikov, fuck it. Bring back Palat for the $6 million at that rate. In my viewpoint, at least, I don't understand Cole and Nemesnikov at those prices. I really, really don't.
Yeah, a little weird. Especially Ian Cole, man. He's physical, though.
Yeah, he's not huge, but he's physical. And there you go. That's enough. And with that, it's Endo Mills. Time to shine the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have signed a lot of depth. Nicolas Aube-Kubel, the dropper of the cup, at 1.1 or 1 year, $1 million. Calle Jarnkrok, today, 4 years at $2.1 million.
That's good.
And that's a very good contract for Jarnkrok. That's fantastic. And then Ilya Samsonov at 1 year, 1.8.
Yeah,
leaving
4 years is trippy to me, though. Like,
I mean, I guess the term drove down the number. That leaves Toronto, and I had to double check the number, with $700K to sign Rasmus Sandin and Pierre Engvall. So 100 million% there are more moves coming. Like, some of the money that could have been used for those two re-signings was just used to bring in Calle Jarnkrok.
Yeah, I see some weird cap wizardry coming out. I don't know what Dubas is going to do, but he's going to do something and pull it out of his ass, as he has for the past like couple while.
Jarnkrok, like
Samsonov
basically,
one is.
You can go ahead with Samsonov. I was going to say Jarnkrok just basically replaces Ilya Mikheyev.
Yeah, it's basically replacing it for half the price. I don't see any issue with bringing it. I'm going to miss Ilya because he was just that good of a penalty killer, and like half of his goals were on the PK. And every time that I went to see him play, he scored on the penalty kill. great guy. Samsonov is great because he finally gets to go to a team that needs a goaltender and isn't really clogging up that kind of thing over there with what's it called, Washington. It'll be a different market to play in for sure for both him and for Murray. I think the team's going to eat him alive. The team's going to be fine. I think the fans are going to eat him alive, though, unfortunately. Ave Kubel, this is what you get for dropping the cup. You come to Toronto instead.
We'll never touch it again.
Well, you'll never have another opportunity to do so.
Hey, listen, you played 10 minutes from the Hockey Hall of Fame. If you want to go look at the cup, just walk over there.
Now, there are a lot of people discussing whether or not Jake Muzzin could be LTIR'd, and that would open up the space for Sandin and Engvall. At the same time, if Jake Muzzin's out, that opens up a whole new crop of issues for this Leafs team, because that's an important guy. Even if he's not playing at the heights he once was, that's an important fucking player for them.
Yep.
So
yeah, a big shot blocker, the big defensive guy. I don't know what the Leafs are going to do in terms of everything else, because they don't have any room for more players unless they make a trade to free up cap space. But again, like I said way before, in terms of the Leafs, the league knows that the Leafs are up at the cap, obviously. I don't know if anyone's going to scratch any backs unless you're, I don't know, giving something up in return. And I think we finally have a first round pick. I mean, we had one this round, but we traded it so we can get our guy in like the 38th pick instead. So like, I don't know if we're going to even use that first round, because Dubas loves trading it like it's candy.
He should.
Yeah.
Like, he should be trading that shit if you're looking to win.
Sin, to round out Toronto, your thoughts on Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov being their goaltending tandem?
Yeah, thank you. Lol. How the fuck do you let Campbell walk and get Murray for like almost the same price?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Campbell's play in like those games was not good.
Sure, but also Murray is not good and hasn't been.
But the Sioux connection.
Have you
telling
considered the Sioux Greyhounds?
Yeah.
Yes. Have you considered the Toronto Sioux Grey Leafs?
Saint Marie.
Yeah.
We talked about Ilya Mikheyev. We can switch over to Vancouver now. He signed with the Canucks 4 years at just under $5 million per, which is hefty. Curtis Lazar, Bruins legend, 3 years, $1 million per there, and they also signed some depth. They have about $1 million in cap space after Michael Ferland goes on LTIR. So there's really nobody left to sign for them. They're pretty much done. I don't know. You talk about the continued evolution of the team. Is it enough with Mikheyev and Lazar and still having all those JT Miller rumors? Like, is that enough? I mean, with a full season of Bruce at the helm, I'm not sure. The Canucks should be looking to make the playoffs. I don't understand the whole, let's trade JT Miller thing at all, though, personally. I can't imagine a return that makes you better now when you kind of want to be better now, because that team should at least be a playoff team.
Yeah. If they're not in the Pacific Division this year, they're fucking up like hardcore. Like, you have to be a playoff team by this point.
Yeah, I mean, especially too, like, I don't know what the leash will be for Bruce, because it doesn't seem like Alvin really wanted to bring him back initially, because he's not the one that hired him in the first place.
Yeah.
We're gonna jump ahead to Washington, because let's be honest, there's a team on here. There's a team on here that should be the main event, and the main event of this podcast should be Sin talking about this team, right? So let's talk about Washington really quickly. We talked about the Connor Brown trade. Great pickup for them. Darcy Kemper, 5 years, just over $5 million. Dylan Strome, 1 year at $3.5 million. That's a fucking steal. And then some depth signings. But they are currently $6 million over the cap, according to Cap Friendly. Nobody to sign in terms of RFAs, but there's no obvious LTIR choice. I don't know what they do at $6 million over the cap. It's fucking bonkers. I don't know how that happened.
The Dylan Strome deal's really good.
Mm-hmm.
That's very inexpensive, and I'm a little upset that the Sharks weren't able to grab him. Yeah. But that wouldn't have given us a lot of room for the other guys that we had.
Right.
But yes, how the fuck are they $6 million over the cap, man?
So you look at their cap friendly currently, and again, it's very surprising that they're listed as $6 million over the cap. And hey, if that's a mistake, blame them. But they don't really make mistakes. So, I mean, obviously, like goaltending, about 6.35 between Kemper and Lindgren. I mean, defensively, Carlson makes 8, Orlov makes 5.1. No other defender makes over 2.5. It's just forward wise, Ovi at 9.5, 9.2 for Backstrom, 5.1 for Wilson, almost $3 million for Carl Hagelin, Kuznetsov 7.8, Oshie and Mantha both closer to $6 million than 5. The extra 3.5 from Connor Brown and 3.5 from Strome. Like, it just adds up. Like, they have too much of a good thing, which could put them in an interesting position here for teams that might miss out on the free agents that they're looking to get.
Yeah.
So
I'll be curious to see what the fuck they're gonna do.
Yeah,
because that's $6 million over the cap is like that's trading Pacioretty for future considerations territory.
Yes. And then the Winnipeg Jets, only depth signings. They have $15.3 million to sign Dubois, Appleton, and Harkins. So they could be in on a big fish, but the direction of the team, I mean, it's almost close to Philadelphia with Winnipeg right now. It's like, are you going to tear it down or are you still going to try to stay strong? Like, they don't seem to have that direction. Yeah. Line back to Winnipeg. Who says no?
Yeah. For future considerations. Yeah, I would love to see them just offer sheeting would be a terrible idea because they give up all those picks, and if they suck, they're fucked. But I would like to, I don't know, take a crack at it. Get Line back. That'd be hilarious. After Winnipeg fucking shit on him for last go. What is it with Canadian teams just absolutely shitting on every single former player? That's a cultural thing up there. Y'all care too much.
Sellers remorse, I guess. Like
y'all just cannot handle the fact that like a former player could still be good. It's so trippy.
Yeah.
You gotta. It's like the people who can't accept that their favorite political person might be a piece of shit. They just refuse to acknowledge that a mistake could have been made. Anyway, let's go.
Reminds me of
all right.
Come on, give it to me. Hurry up, Endo. I want to talk about Vegas.
Oh, okay.
I need to take a shit, and they're looking prime. They got a big old target on them.
I was gonna say, it reminds me of everyone asking for Reimer back on the Leafs, and meanwhile, it's like, you guys hated him. Why the fuck do you want him back? Like, I hate when fucking fan bases do that. Oh, this guy's terrible. Like, literally 3 years later, I want him back. He's great now. He's great. He's terrible. Then they come back and be the exact same shape he was before. Like,
Ladies and gentlemen, you can follow Endo Mills at Endo Mills, Twitter, Twitch. You can follow me everywhere at Tougie24. Sin is at Sin FTW Prod or Sin FTW Productions, depending on the platform.
Are we just skipping Vegas?
No, I am going to give you the floor, sir. As the
you were doing the sign off. I was fucking scared.
The Vegas Golden Knights, to recap their moves: Max Pacioretty trade. They re-signed Riley Smith, 3 years of $5 million and some depth. After the Weber LTIR, they have about $6 million to sign Nick Hague, Nick Waugh, and Keegan Colasar. So they might be done, but you never know with these clowns. Is how I was gonna sign off there. Endo's got the popcorn. I'm gonna sit back and relax. Sin for the win. You're back on the show for the first time in over a month, and you get to talk about Vegas to end the show.
MICKEYMOUSC. MICKEYMOUSC. Mickey Mouse fucking franchise. All right. Pacioretty. You gave him away for free. That's hilarious. Number one. Number two, I have been saying this will happen for 3 years. 3 years. I've been talking to Vegas and being like, you guys are going to go into a rebuild if you keep managing this team like that. Not only that, you're not going to be able to sign these stars if you keep treating your players like that. And what I mean by it's baffling to me that this franchise is being run. I guess it's not baffling that it's being run like a fucking casino, but it is. Like, what the hell? There's no way on earth that you get rid of your best goal scorer for literally nothing. There's no way on earth you get rid of an elite goaltender for nothing. There's no way on earth you get rid of your best prospect. And it wasn't for nothing, but actually now it is, because you got rid of Pacioretty for nothing. Therefore, Suzuki went for 3 years of almost nothing. Haig, Law, Colasar, they should be able to fit under $6 million. They still have so many gaps. You just lost your best fucking goal scorer. You kept Riley Smith over him. Lol. Marchessault's still on that roster. I would say lol, but he'd come after me and say that I need to be sucking mommy's titty or something like that. Very French. I don't know. I thought I'd be a lot funnier than this, but I'm still jet lagged to shit.
I'm having fun.
But it's just Vegas is a fucking clown shoes organization, Mickey Mouse franchise, and this is what they deserve. And I'm the most vindicating part of all of this was last year when the whole league finally understood Vegas is hot garbage, and now even more vindicating when I'm seeing so many of their fans be like, "What the hell are we doing? I've been told you what you're doing, motherfuckers. Lick my left nut only."
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for listening to another edition of the Tougie Steak Podcast. Starting next week, we're going to be moving on to our 1 per week format through the rest of the offseason because there won't be as much to talk about. I'd like to imagine by the time we have another show that Nazem Kadri will have signed somewhere, hopefully with Nashville. Where will Patrick Laine be? Who knows? And again, we kind of talked about it. A lot of teams still have a lot of things to decide. We thank you for listening. Again, code Tougie at manscaped.com. And we will see you next week.